Up next, we are thrilled to present another insightful session titled How to Save Millions of People and Devices Before Compromise. We're honored to welcome two distinguished speakers to share their expertise. Mr. Tejas Lagad, Director, APAC and Middle East and Africa Nexus. Mr. Daniel Hjort, Chief Marketing Officer, In Group.
Thank you. Yeah, so apart from being what I do, I also make short films. And one of my favorite films of the last year, I think for many of us, was this beautiful film called How to Make Millions Before Grandma Dies. I think it also has got an Oscar nomination. So hopefully, if the judges are right, they will also possibly give it an award, because it deserves one. Because it's a film which has a fantastic message. But more importantly, in the context of what we are doing today, it also talks about how to put a message across very simply. If you heard this morning and what the speakers have been talking about, and it as a normal tech person, it could be a very daunting task to go and fix all these, and the complexity that comes along, with fixing these things. But the real fun, is about having this very delicate balance between solving a problem, but yet keeping the solution very simple and very easy to manage as well. And the same challenge, we are facing, in the security world as well. The moment we try to increase security, we seem to lose some of the simplicity and increase the complexity. And what we will try to do over the next 20 minutes is try to see if at all we can solve the challenge together, Daniel.
Yeah, let's see.
And what gives us the authority to speak about this, Daniel? About how to go and save millions before compromise.
Yeah, what gives us the authority? I would say that it's going beyond millions.
Yes.
So actually, just looking at the year that passed, we are issuing digital identities to ensure security in systems. And during the last years, we broke the 10 billion mark of issued identities. So just during 2024, we issued 4 billion identities that spans from human identities, digital ones, to IoT identities in cars and whatever. We will talk more about it. And as Tejas started, I think that so many has been talking about the threat and actually the curve and the gap that is currently there between the digitalization and security. And we are very active in the IoT space, so there we see as well a huge gap in not just security, but in competence actually. So if we look at the different types of identities that actually build up to those 10 billion identities, we can start with citizens, and there it's digital identities mainly issued by government authorities around the world that use the digital identities to go on everything from passports to ID cards to mobile phones. And what we will focus on here today is that, and also workforce, meaning that being a part of being a citizen, having my private identity, but also being at the office, doing my stuff and acting in my role, I need a digital identity. And then you have the workplace, meaning all the devices that exists within the organization. Also virtual devices, basically servers, conference systems, anything that actually acts within the parameter of the workplace. And then lastly, IoT. Super interesting area where we're doing a lot. We'll come back to that as well. So, do we reinvent the wheel at Nexus? Do we, Tejas?
No, we don't. And the reason we don't need to reinvent the wheel is because all the challenges that we spoke about now today have actually existed from the time that internet has been. They have just become much larger, and more intense, and they have come home now. But the solutions lie back into the start of the internet. So all of us, use websites which are all secured by digital certificates. And you usually see this green mark when you visit a website, which authenticates that the website is indeed what it is. And all that is based upon a simple technology called public key infrastructure, or PKI, which is based upon digital certificates. And we can repurpose the same technology, which has been existing for the last 40 years and has been working really well, to be able to go ahead and address the same challenges that we currently are facing in terms of identifying people. Because essentially, what we're trying to do over the internet, or over the cloud, is try to go ahead and solve the key challenge about, do we know whom we are speaking to? Is the device or the person that we are talking to, is it really who it claims to be, or is it a malware, or is it a spyware that is trying to go ahead and attack into my network? When I'm trying to send any data, is the intended recipient the only one which can see the data? And of course, how do you know that the data has not been changed over the wire? And the solutions around PKI, or public key infrastructure, can help us address effectively all these challenges by providing authentication, by providing integrity, and of course data confidentiality as well. And of course, you can draw a parallel in the real world, from in the PKI space and with what we do in the real space, as well. But let's start piece by piece, Daniel, and let's look at what we can do, for example, in the mobile PKI space.
Yeah, that's where we see a lot of things happening. So starting from the workforce environment, and also citizen. So it's basically so that every one of us, there is one thing that we look at the first thing that we wake up, and we never forget when we go to work, and that's our phone. And every citizen is used to using it, and are very familiar with the device, so to say. So this that we should implement and give someone something else is just basically not working. Of course, a lot of implementations is looking at trust anchors, being maybe a passport or something that you derive an identity from. But you don't want to go around and use your passport on a daily basis. So you derive a secure, easy to use mobile identity from a trusted root. So basically what we're talking about is using the mobile as a combined identity carrier. So basically being able to use it for visual identity and for physical ID, meaning that you can actually replace your corporate badge or whatever, so you use the mobile phone to actually access through the doors at the office as well. And just in the middle, you have the digital ID. That's where we are replacing, stuff that real users are, and not just users, but also administrators are really, struggling with. And this case, it's a perfect example.
Absolutely. It's not just theory, what Daniel spoke about, but this has been implemented worldwide, and also right here in Thailand with the Ministry of Finance. So Ministry of Finance has this wonderful application called as the GFMIS, which is a centralized application being used by all the government officers to make an application to be able to go ahead and make a budgetary requisition and eventually get it approved and signed as well. And for that application, for a few years, they had been using physical tokens to identify the users. Now you can imagine the government staff is spread all around Thailand into the most remote villages, and getting a token across to them, and when it doesn't work, getting it replaced would have been a big challenge to manage. And that's the reason why the Ministry of Finance replaced that with the Smart ID mobile that we just spoke about.
Yeah.
And the results have been great, because it has been able to go ahead and reduce the complexity pretty substantially. And we can possibly look at a demo, Daniel?
Yeah, I think that this is, they are using it to access all critical systems and so on. In this case, it's just showing the video goes so quick, so I have to talk before. So it's basically us showing removing the password totally in the Windows logon. So basically, you just select the authentication method, you get the push to the mobile phone, you approve it, and you protect the two-factor with your biometrics, and then you're automatically logged on the laptop. This is also using BLE, so as soon as you remove yourself from the laptop, the workstation will lock automatically. So this is basically taking it to the next level and not just using it for these kind of applications that you're logging into.
I think the earlier speaker talked about the biggest threat in carelessness, right? And one of the careless things that we usually do is we log on to your application or the machine, and then we get a call and we leave the desk and go away. Right? This kind of a solution can help you go ahead and measure the distance between your phone and your laptop and the application, and automatically when the distance increases, it can automatically log you off from your application. So if we take away one of the biggest threats that the previous speaker talked about, which is carelessness.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually there in Copenhagen 2004 when Bill Gates was there, and then he made a famous statement. We at Microsoft, we see passwords, actually they're dead as an authentication method, meaning that they should not be used. And here we are 21 years later, and I think that the most commonly used authentication method is still the password.
Indeed.
But I think that this is, when we met this customer that you talked about before, the thing that he said, it's like we need to take care of the users, because they are so frustrated about the security department coming, pushing security mechanism. Okay, now you have to do this. The password have to be longer. It has to be more complex. You have to use this device. You have to do this. So having them being able to simplify the user's daily experience while implementing a much more secure solution. That was the most important one. So I emphasize that the users, they will find a way around if it's too complicated. It's just to look a few countries in Europe. Germany, they were one of the first issuing a very secure solution for healthcare. What happened? Too complex. No one used it. Everyone found a way. They continued to use all the old routines that were still there.
Perfect. And then coming on to the second aspect, so now that you solved the workforce problem, by giving them an identity that can do both physical as visual and digital identity, how can we go ahead and extend the same platform to go ahead and cover the next use case, which is the devices that the people carry? Because the devices that we carry, the laptops, the iPads, the mobile phones that the company gives us, the routers, and the servers that we access, all of them are also part of the same ecosystem that we're currently driving. And all of them also require an identity. Because this is the fastest way for you to go ahead and breach the strong base and the foundation you have made for security by going ahead and trying to impersonate a device that is just sitting there and trying to be an authentic device. And there have been companies who have addressed this challenge very effectively by extending their implementation from workforce towards workplace as well. Daniel?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a typical customer that we've had for a long time. It's a worldwide customer. They use the solution for all their employees, I think more than 300,000. Every one of them based on PKI, not being able to access anything. But here we've also extended the solution to help them to also issue identities to all the devices in their environment. And that's, I think that previous speakers also talked about zero trust, and we quite often mentioned that the inside is now the parameter. A couple of years ago, we could talk about, okay, let's protect the parameter. This is inside, this is our network. We do this inside, and outside we do this. Now, it doesn't work anymore. Everyone wants to access any information from anywhere. So you have to actually really take care and validate the identities of even, is it the conference room that is authenticating? I get a new printer in the office, that is coming maybe from an IT supplier. It's just untrusted until you issue your organizational certificate to the printer. Otherwise, that will be the place that they will come in and attack you.
And you don't stop, at just going ahead and issuing identities. We need to, of course, go ahead and manage them, Daniel.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is critical. You saw a lot of these kind of newspaper or web articles about attacks and so on. And one thing that is every week, there is a big brand and it's blown up and their services are down. And 9 out of 10 times, it's because their certificate expired. And unfortunately, it's a huge topic. Even in very serious companies, they don't have a solution in place to manage all types of certificates, meaning internal trust, but also external. Large organizations, they buy certificates from publicly trusted routes. Who is managing that? Okay, maybe it was Tejas at your former employer,
Yes.
and then you left, and then suddenly this happened, the services goes down, no one knows. Okay, who issued that certificate? How do we get a new one, etc. So getting a CLM implementation in place, basically covering the internal trust, but also the external that the organization is relying on, it's key.
And these kind of dashboards can give an instant outlook about also the security level of the enterprise as well, in terms of where we stand on the cryptography too. I think all of us have heard about the post-quantum cryptography wave coming in, and it's very important for us to go ahead and maintain agility in terms of cryptography. And these dashboards also give us an outlook as to where do we stand in terms of algorithms that we currently are consuming, and how soon we need to start migrating to the PQC safe algorithms as well.
And we quite often get the question, why should we start to care about PQC, post-quantum cryptography now? Because it might, the issues that we have year 2000 was that we knew that it was happening, New Year's Eve 2000, everyone was on their toes. PQC, we don't actually know which date, if it's going to be in 1 year or 5 years or 7 years, where the existing algorithms will be hacked. So you have to actually start the inventory of which data have you encrypted, with which algorithms, and which data are you actually caring about for a long time. So meaning that what threat actors are doing now is that they are collecting data, even if it's encrypted. Because when PQC comes, they have your data, and then they will be able to decrypt it. So it's a huge difference before. Before was it like, I'm gonna hack you, I'm gonna get your data and do it. Now we see a huge difference, collecting data, saving it, waiting until they get the next level of weapons.
And within the enterprise, at least still it's a limited amount of devices and people. But Daniel, what happens when you take it outside the enterprise and into the mass scale, into the wild world of IoT?
And that's when it really happens. What we see now in the IoT environment is that there are so many devices being connected. The numbers are crazy. You see the line for people in the world. You basically don't see that it rises at all. But when we talk about connected devices, it just explodes. And what is it? It's everything. It's watering sensors, it's cat trays, it's belts and flip-flops, etc. You don't even think about it. You just buy something. Oh, I can monitor it with my phone. That's great. I can do this and this. And I met with one of the integrators in Stockholm a couple of weeks ago, and they are working with IoT projects, 61 ongoing projects. I asked him, how many of these 61 IoT projects are you actually seeing that the supplier is considering security? He said 55, maybe 55 to 58 of them, nothing. And why? Because it's so business driven. There is an idea. Let's create a solution where we can monitor the dishwasher. We can start it and stop it. I can see how many minutes there are left on the dishwasher. I can do this and this. Let's test it. And then you start and you issue it. and you test it in a small group. Oh, it works good. Let's scale it. And then suddenly you have thousands of connected devices, and then you start to think about security.
But Daniel, why should we be worried about security of a dishwasher? What could go wrong?
It's a good question, but it's really, of course, the obvious thing is that the dishwasher or anything else at home will be the open door into your network. If it's unprotected, that's where they will access you. But that's the obvious one, but we're also discussing with government authorities in different countries, and that's where I got actually this slide from. It was in Sweden, I think, and the government agency said, well, we've been looking at critical infrastructure and water. So we're now looking at connected dishwashers. And I was like, what does that have to do with it? Yeah, we see that there is probably 80% of dishwashers that are having the hatch open. And we see it's a simple thing. They can just go in, take over the dishwasher, and start the water flow. So what will happen? Of course, the water will run out in the city. And secondly, there will be hundreds of thousands of kitchens that will be flooded. Electricity will be damaged, etc. So it's actually foreign attacks that see that if I want to attack a nation and I want to go into critical infrastructure and disturb the water supplies, they can actually attack a dishwasher.
And in many places, the washing machine or the refrigerator is actually the smart home hub. So it's a device from which the rest of the internet within the home gets connected. And this may not be just a home. It could be actually an industrial washing machine in a nuclear facility, which could be causing much more damage. And again, this is not just theory. We actually have seen attacks onto smart meter systems of large countries, where because you can remotely go ahead and monitor the energy usage of a certain consumer, and the moment that they go ahead and exceed a certain credit limit, you can remotely switch off the supply. Now, this power to be able to go ahead and remotely switch off a supply can be grossly misused, in a conflict scenario. And that's the reason why all the smart meters, are increasingly becoming secured. This is one of the example of a very large project that we've recently done in the Middle East, where they're currently deploying 13 million smart meters, all of which are secured through digital certificates, because they want to ensure that when a smart meter receives the command to switch off supply, it's actually coming from the authentic energy company source and not a neighbor country, which could actually go ahead and cause a lot of damage, to it. And this is not just about smart meters. It could be something as basic as the telecom infrastructure being set up. Increasingly with 5G, we see a huge number of eNode Bs, or smaller gateways, all around the conference area to ensure that we are able to go ahead and have a high amount of 5G speed when we use our internet. But while doing that, we might actually go ahead and end up having a rogue device in the network as well, which would be able to go ahead and see the calls that you are doing, see the data that is passing through, and possibly also cause a denial of service attack on the telecom. And that's the reason why large telecom infrastructure companies like Vodafone, like Etisalat, like Airtel, and so on and so forth, are all securing their 5G infra by using a solution, like digital infrastructure from Nexus and based upon a PKI solution as well. But it doesn't stop at that. We go to automobile as well.
So it spans from basically being a device that can be a temperature meter, that a sensor that is on the wall or something, to that we call a constraint device, but it's still an attack point, to very advanced devices, cars being one of the most advanced ones actually running around now. So Volkswagen, one of our biggest customers worldwide, where we provide all their identities for all new cars that are issues moving out on the street. So being able to securely communicate with all their surroundings. So this is basically also applying something called V2X, meaning vehicle to anything, meaning that it's a standard that enables a car to communicate. Could be a collision, a road accident, emergency vehicle, meaning that emergency vehicle comes from behind, the car will tell you to actually move to the side. It will say, an emergency vehicle is 200 meters behind you, 100 meters, 50, move. And if you don't move, in the future, the car will probably move by itself. So this is a huge installations, and here we're issuing billions of identities.
Fantastic. And within the automobile space, we are seeing currently a revolution in terms of electric vehicles. Now, imagine a world where you have 90% of the vehicles on the road all being EV, and imagine the amount of charging infrastructure we will need to simply go and power them once again when they're near the end of the fuel. Which means that we will need more roadside chargers, charging stations. And the way for us to bring down the cost of a charging station is to take away the need to put a point of sale terminal on them, to be able to go and pay when you charge. And that is enabled by a solution called as plug and charge, where you can just simply drive in your vehicle, plug into your vehicle, and once you've charged, let's say you had your coffee, you can plug it out and start driving again. Where is the payment? The payment happens seamlessly through digitally signed contracts based upon identities that are given to your vehicle. So automatically at the end of the month, you will get a bill for your home electricity usage, but a small section below which says you also charged your car at these many places in the last month, and here is the bill for that too. So it allows us to go ahead and seamlessly implement solutions without worrying about paying when you do it. And all of this can be implemented by a centralized PKI or a public infrastructure from companies like Nexus. Now, when you talk about implementing a security solution, it's important that the security solution itself is very secure. And that's the reason why we have got our solution evaluated, including for backdoors, including from the code perspective as well, for a certification called as the Common Criteria EAL4+ compliance. And that's exactly what we do. And if at all you've heard the earlier speaker, you also realize that the amount of skills required for solutions which are very modern might be very high, which is the reason why you don't need to actually go and deploy it completely on-premise, but you could simply consume it over the service as well, which means you simply focus upon the consumption, and then go ahead and simply focus on the benefits that you may get out of it.
Yep.
So at the end, Daniel, going back to the first question that we started with, does security always need to bring in more complexity then?
No, I think absolutely not. So the mobile use cases, the plug and charge, the helping you drive more secure, etc. So in many cases, implemented right, especially when we talk about human interaction, it's you can click one more. It's about helping the users to do right, because no one wants to be careless. No one wants, but if we apply two advanced security solutions that are not user-friendly, they will find a way around them. So very easy to use is basically the theme, and that's where we see the success of implementation, I must say. That's and it, of course, we talked a lot about authentication, but implementing digitalization, meaning signature, encryption, etc., based on the same technology.
And then if done everything right, we will be able to go and secure millions before compromise. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tejas from Nexus and Daniel from In-Group. สำหรับเซสชันที่จบไปนะคะก็ทั้งสองท่านค่ะได้เล่าให้ฟังนะคะถึง identity attack นะคะที่เรียกได้ว่าตอนนี้เกิดขึ้นอย่างมากถึง 10,000 ล้านครั้งนะคะเป็นความอันตรายที่ทุกคนเนี่ยจะต้องคำนึงถึงแล้วก็ป้องกันนั่นเองนะคะโดยที่หนึ่งในsolution ที่สำคัญนะคะก็จะเป็นตัว PKI นะคะหรือว่า Public Key Infrastructure นั่นเองนะคะซึ่งตัว Nexus เองก็มี solution นี้ค่ะทั้งสองท่านนะคะได้อธิบายให้ฟังค่ะแล้วก็ยกตัวอย่างให้ฟังนะคะว่าตัว PKI เนี่ยสามารถที่จะอยู่ในมือถือของทุกคนได้นะคะโดยมีระบบนะคะทั้ง Visual Digital แล้วก็ Physical Identity นั่นเองนะคะเพื่อช่วยเพิ่มความปลอดภัยให้มีความ Secure ยิ่งขึ้นนะคะพร้อมทั้งมีการเดโมระบบให้ดูนะคะผ่านวิดีโออย่างไวๆนะคะเป็นระบบล็อกอินค่ะด้วย PKI นะคะที่จะช่วยให้ทุกคนเนี่ยสร้างความปลอดภัยในการล็อกอินต่างๆนะคะเพราะว่าหลายๆครั้งเนี่ยเราอาจจะลุกไปที่ไหนแล้วก็ลืมที่จะล็อกออฟไปนะคะนั่นอาจจะเป็นความแบบไม่ระวังของเราเองก็ได้นะคะซึ่งระบบนี้ก็จะช่วยให้มีความปลอดภัยยิ่งขึ้นค่ะเพราะเมื่อเราลุกออกไปเนี่ยระบบจะทำการล็อกออฟด้วยตัวเองค่ะ นอกจากนี้นะคะยังมีการพูดถึงเรื่อง workplace devices หรือว่าอุปกรณ์อิเล็กทรอนิกส์ต่างๆของบริษัทนะคะซึ่งแน่นอนค่ะจะต้องเพิ่มความปลอดภัยนะคะให้มากยิ่งขึ้นด้วยนะคะเพราะตอนนี้เนี่ย attacker นะคะก็มีการเริ่มเก็บข้อมูลไว้ก่อนแม้ว่าข้อมูลอาจจะยัง encrypt อยู่นะคะก็เป็นความอันตรายที่ทุกท่านเนี่ยน่าจะต้องควรระวังนะคะโดยเฉพาะองค์กรใหญ่ๆค่ะและนอกจากนี้นะคะยังมีการพูดถึง IoT identities นะคะซึ่งพูดถึง connected device หรืออุปกรณ์อิเล็กทรอนิกส์ต่างๆค่ะที่ล้วนมีความเสี่ยงต่อ cyber attack นะคะสุดท้ายนะคะ please don't forget to scan the QR code for the feedback for this session and this event so we can improve our future events. And before we head to lunch, just want to say thanks to all of you for being with us here this morning for the session, and we'll see you back here at the main stage at 1 p.m. with more exciting afternoon program awaits. See you soon.